Benign tumors means they normally remain confined to a specific place. They do not spread to other body parts. The normal cells, they will start to divide uncontrollably, leading to the formation of neoplastic cells or tumor cells. These malignant tumor cells, they divide uncontrollably and they spread to other parts of the body. Removal of them and treatment of them is quite difficult. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to the last session of this chapter 8 of second PUC, that is Human Health and Diseases. I am Dr. Divya, Biology Faculty, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Mysuru, Temple of Excellence. So in the previous session of this chapter, we had discussed about a dreadful disease, that is AIDS, meaning acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, and we also learned about how it spreads and what are the preventive measures that can be followed to avoid AIDS. In today's session, let us discuss about one more deadly disease, which is cancer, and this cancer is non-infectious. And also we shall study about drug abuse and alcohol abuse as well. So to begin with, let us start with what is cancer. So cancer is one of the most dreaded diseases of human beings. So it comes under the non-infectious diseases because it is not caused by any infection, but it is caused because of genetic variations occurring in the body or the mutations occurring in the DNA, leading to increase in the cell number or proliferation of the cells or division of the cells uncontrollably, leading to cancer eventually. And it is one of the major cause of death all over the globe because cancer cannot be cured. It can be cured only if it is detected in an early stage. After that, if it is detected in a late stage, then the cure is not possible. So therefore, it is one of the leading causes of death all over the world, and therefore it is one of the leading deaths all over the globe. And not just that, in India alone, it is said that 1 million people suffer from cancer, and there are a large number of people that die because of cancer annually. So therefore, it is one of the most devastating diseases existing today. In a body, cell growth and differentiation is usually highly controlled, right? Say for example, one cell will divide to form two daughter cells. The two daughter cells divide to form four, be it mitosis or meiosis division. But what happens in the case of cancer? So, in a normal healthy human being, the cell growth as well as differentiation is quite controlled and regulated, as I told you. So, as I told you that one cell will divide to form two daughter cells, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, and all these divisions are in a controlled manner. But in the case of cancer cells or a person affected by cancer, what happens here is this particular regulated mechanism. What type of regulated mechanism? It is nothing but the controlled state of cell division gets altered or it gets hindered. So therefore, uncontrollably the cells will start to divide within a very short span of time, therefore leading to cancer. So therefore, in cancer cells, there is a breakdown of the above mentioned regulatory functions, such as there is an alteration or breakdown in the cell growth, differentiation and the cell division as well. And normal cells, they usually show a property called as contact inhibition, by virtue of which contact with other cells inhibits their uncontrolled growth. So, in normal cells, what happens? There is a property, and that property is called as contact inhibition. So, one cell controls the division of the neighboring cell there. But in the case of cancer cells, what happens? The control is not at all there, leading to uncontrollable division, leading to a large mass of cell formation in the body. That is when the tumors and all start to develop, because tumors are nothing but the uncontrollably divided cells that are there. They are the extra cells that the body don't need. So therefore, cancer cells appear to have lost this particular property of controlled division or contact inhibition. As a result, cancer cells continue to divide uncontrollably, giving rise to masses of cells. That is, they divide in such a way. So, imagine if uncontrollable division is there, where can those cells accumulate in the body? There is no place for it to accumulate in the body. Therefore, they will form extra growths, and those extra growths are nothing but called as tumors. So, cancer also leads to the formation of tumors in some type of cancers, but some type of cancers only there will be uncontrolled division of cells. Say for example, uncontrolled division of the red blood cells leading to the blood cancer. So, likewise. So, this is about cancer. So, I told you, if at all uncontrolled division of cells occur, it will lead to tumor formation. And the tumor formation can be of two types. They are benign and malignant. So, what are these two? Let us look into. First, talking about benign tumors. So, benign tumors means they normally remain confined to a specific place. They do not spread to other body parts, and they can be removed by surgery very easily, and the person can be cured. So, normally they remain confined to their original location, and they do not spread to other parts of the body, and therefore they cause very little damage to that particular person, and also through radiation therapies and all that, this or surgeries and medications, this particular benign tumors can be cured. But what about malignant tumors? Malignant tumors are nothing but groups of proliferating cells which are dividing uncontrollably, but the only thing is they spread to other parts of the body, and these mass of proliferating cells are called as neoplastic or tumor cells. So, these neoplast cells or tumor cells, they'll start to grow rapidly, and they will start to attack or invade, and they will start to damage the surrounding normal tissues as well. So, that is how they spread. Say for example, a tumor in the stomach. So, if it is benign, it can be removed because it will be confined to the stomach area itself, and the person can be cured of that particular problem after prolonged medication. But in the case of malignant tumors, because these malignant tumor cells, they divide uncontrollably and they spread to other parts of the body, removal of them and treatment of them is quite difficult. Treatment can be done when it is early detected. Otherwise, treatment is quite difficult because they spread to uncontrollably, they spread to normal tissues as well. So, all these cells actively divide and grow, and they also starve the normal cells by competing for vital nutrients. So, what happens when the extra cells are there in the body? So, each cell has its own distribution of nutrients, right? But what might happen if extra unwanted cells start to produce in the body? Then the competition for nutrition among the cells will start. So, when competition starts, what happens? The healthy cells that are there, they will be deprived of nutrition, or they will not get enough nutrition because the unhealthy tumor cells would have utilized all the nutrition. Because why they would have utilized all the nutrition? Because they are multiplying and differentiating very fast. So, that is the reason. So, therefore, the healthy cells will be deprived of the important nutrients, and therefore, such cells are cut off from the tumors before they reach the distant site through blood, and wherever they get lodged in the body, they start a new tumor there. So, that is how they spread. So, what they do is they slough off, or they detach themselves from one part, and through the blood, those cells which are there, that is the tumor cells or the neoplast cells, they move through the blood to another part, and they will start developing tumors there. So, that is how these particular malignant tumors spread throughout the body. So, this property is called as metastasis. So, metastasis is nothing but the spreading of the neoplast cells or tumor cells in the body of a human being. and it is one of the most devastating property of malignant tumors. So malignant tumors, they spread very rapidly. So therefore, it is malignant tumors are the ones which are the leading cause for death. Benign tumors are okay, not to worry, because they do not spread to other parts of the body. Therefore, they can be easily treated and removed, but that is not the case with malignant tumors. So it is one of the devastating tumors that are there. So next, let's look into what are the causes of cancer. So when studying about infectious diseases in the previous session, we studied about various fungi, viruses and the protozoans, then the helminths and the bacteria which cause different diseases and how they spread and all that. But cancer does not spread from one person to another. Cancer is not caused by a particular microorganism. Of course, there are some viruses which are known to cause cancer, but apart from that, it is usually not caused by a fungi or a bacteria. So how does cancer actually occur? So cancer is caused because of transformation of normal cells into cancerous neoplastic cells. So what are cancerous neoplastic cells? They are nothing but the tumor cells. So what happens here is the normal cells, they will start to divide uncontrollably, leading to the formation of neoplastic cells or tumor cells. So these formations of neoplastic cells may be because of some physical reasons, because of some chemical reasons, or because of biological agents as well. I told you some of the viruses, they are capable of causing cancer, and some of the physical properties also can cause cancer. And apart from that, even some of the chemicals. So there are a lot of chemicals that we use in our household nowadays, which may be one of the pesticides, the insecticides, all those chemicals may be one of the reasons for cause of cancer. So that is why cancer can be caused because of physical agents, chemical agents, as well as biological agents. So these agents are called as carcinogens. So what are carcinogens? Carcinogens are the agents which cause cancer. So some of the examples they have given here, even some of the radiations, some of the physical factors also can cause cancer. The best example that we can take of is the ionizing radiations. So ionizing radiations are usually found in X-rays. So that is why whenever you have a chest infection or something and the doctor suggests you to go for an X-ray and you go into the X-ray room, within seconds they'll try to finish off the scan and then they try to send you out. Why? Because X-rays contain a lot of ionizing radiations, and prolonged exposure to these ionizing radiations can cause cancer. So that is why within a very short span of time, they'll just finish off the procedure and send you out. So like X-rays, then gamma rays, and also some of the non-ionizing radiations like the UV rays. So UV rays usually they cause skin cancer, and all the other rays that are there, be it the ionizing radiation from the X-rays and gamma rays, or be it the non-ionizing radiations from the UV rays, all these radiations, they damage the DNA present in the cell. So damaging the DNA means it is nothing but bringing about mutation in the DNA or altering the structure of the DNA. So when the DNA gets damaged, the normal cells will become tumor cells or it will become neoplastic cells. They'll get transformed into neoplastic cells or tumor cells. So that is how cancer is caused by radiations, because of DNA damage that has occurred because of exposure to ionizing radiations and non-ionizing radiations. And also there are some chemical carcinogens which cause cancer, right? Or chemical agents that cause cancer. Some of the chemical agents that are present in the tobacco smoke. So this is one of the major leading deaths in the world, especially people who smoke tobacco. It causes lung cancer because tobacco contains a chemical that can alter the division of the cells, causing uncontrolled division of the cells, leading to especially lung cancer. So these are the different agents or the carcinogens that causes cancer. And there are some biotic agents as well, right? So the biotic agents that causes cancer are some of the viruses. So these viruses which cause cancer are called as oncogenic viruses, and they have genes called as viral oncogenes. Again, what they will do here, these viruses will incorporate their gene into the host's genome, therefore causing cancer. So that is how it occurs. And there are other genes also called as the cellular oncogenes or the proto-oncogenes. All these genes, where are they present? They are present in the genetic material, the DNA, or if it is virus, it can be either in the DNA of the virus or the RNA of the virus. And they have been identified in normal cells, which when activated under certain condition, they could lead to oncogenic transformation of the cell. So that is why it is said most of us will have these genes in our system, but only the thing is these genes will remain inactive throughout our lifespan. But because of some reason, because of some exposure to some unwanted substance, or because of some reason, if these genes such as the cellular oncogenes or the proto-oncogenes, if they get activated, then it will lead to cancer in the human body. So therefore, there are some viruses which also can cause cancer, and in the human body itself, there are some genes called as the oncogenes or the protogenes, which also when activated may cause cancer. So these are the biotic agents. So these were the different physical, the chemical and the biotic agents, which are nothing but called as the carcinogens that cause the cancer. So carcinogens are nothing but the cancer causing substances or agents. So next let's look into how the detection of cancer and the diagnosis of cancer is done. So as I told you, cancer can be cured if it is early detected. So therefore, early detection of cancer is quite essential, or it is very, very important, as it allows the disease to be treated at an early stage quite successfully in many of the cases. So cancer detection can be done by two important procedures. One is based on biopsy and the other one is based on histopathological studies of the tissue, the blood and the bone marrow test. So here what they do is, in biopsy or in histopathological study, they try to count the number of cells that have been formed. So when they go in for the count of the number of cells, they will understand that person is suffering from cancer. So say for example, when they take the count of the blood, so in blood, if the number of blood cell count increases drastically more than that is needed, of course the blood cell count, some of the components of the blood cells, they can increase during an infection as well. But to rule out, if it uncontrollably increases and doesn't come down even after a proper treatment, then it means that that person is suffering from leukemia, that is nothing but blood cancer. So this is how cancer is detected. So two important procedures are there. One is biopsy and the other one is histopathological studies of the tissues, the blood samples and the sample drawn from the bone marrow. So let's study about each of these in detail. So first let's study about biopsy. What exactly is done in biopsy? So biopsy can also be done to test, say for example, there is a lymph node swelling. So lymph node swelling also, the doctor goes in for a biopsy to find out the exact reason. Sometimes it can be the viruses might get, or the bacteria, whatever infectious agents are there, they might get trapped in the lymph nodes and cause the swelling. So that all that doesn't mean it is exactly cancer, but to rule out, they go in for all these procedures. So talking about biopsy. So in biopsy, a piece of the tissue, any suspected tissue that is there, suspected because it has grown uncontrollably, any tumor that is there, that will be cut and it will be cut into very thin sections and it will be stained properly and observed under the microscope. So sometimes that growth may be because of some infection. So cancer can be ruled out. So sometimes it can be because of, if it is because of uncontrolled division of the cell, they will go in for further studies to find out whether it is cancer or not. So this biopsy is usually done by a pathologist, a person who is well versed in studying the tissues of a human body. Next is histopathological studies of the tissue. So histopathologicals, here also anatomical sections are taken and of the tissues and the studies are conducted. So how do they do? We shall look into. So here they don't exactly, in histopathological studies here, unlike biopsy, they don't exactly take a section of a tissue and observe it under the microscope, but they use certain procedures such as radiography, wherein they make use of X-rays and they go in for CT scan, that is computed tomography scan, and they go in for MRI scan, that is magnetic resonance imaging scan, and also they go in for other types of detection methods. So all these will give an idea of the internal organs. So what has happened to the internal organs? These scans will give a very clear idea of it. So that is how histopathological studies of the cancer tissues are done. And in computed tomography, they use X-rays. So these X-rays, what it gives is, it gives a 3D image of the internal object. So, or internal organ, it gives a 3D image. So, any change in the structure of the internal organ or any tumor formation in the internal organ can be easily detected. Whereas MRI, it uses strong magnetic field. So they use strong magnetic field and they also use non-ionizing radiation. So non-ionizing radiation means in this particular MRI, X-rays are not used because X-ray is used in CT scan wherein it makes use of ionizing radiations. But in MRI scan, along with the use of strong magnetic fields, they also use non-ionizing radiations, and these non-ionizing radiations are capable of very accurately or correctly detecting the pathological and the physiological changes in the living tissue. So any physiological change in the tissue can be detected very easily through a MRI scan. So that is the difference between biopsy and these scans. So in biopsy, a part of tissue will be cut and removed from the body for examination. But can a person's internal organ part of tissue can be cut and examined? Not possible, right? So during such times, they go in for histopathological study wherein they use the CT scan, the MRI and all that first for detecting the abnormalities in the internal organs or the cells of the internal organs. And they also use a procedure which is antibodies against cancer specific antigens. So these are also used. So antibodies, what are antibodies? Antibodies are the agents that fight against a particular infectious agent, right? And that for particular infectious agent is called as antigens. So antibodies will be designed which are capable of detecting the cancer antigens. So using that method also certain cancers can be detected. And there is also techniques of molecular biology that have been adopted or applied in order to detect the genes, because the alteration in the DNA can also be one of the reasons for the cause of cancer, right? So therefore, exactly has there been any alteration in the gene? Has the oncogenes or the protogenes become activated? And that might be one of the bases for identifying that the person might have cancer. So for all that, certain molecular biology procedures are also followed, and identification of such genes will actually predispose an individual to certain cancers, and it may be very helpful in prevention of cancer. Because what happens here is, earlier itself if we identify whether such genes are there in the human body, then some form of treatment can be done so that the cancer can be prevented, and such individuals may be advised to avoid exposure to certain carcinogens. Say, I told you the oncogenes and protogenes are present in some of the human body. Only thing is they are in the inactive form. When will they become active? When they are subjected to a particular carcinogen. So what doctors can do is, earlier itself, or any person, they can go in for genetic studies, that is molecular based studies, wherein they can get their genes checked. So, or their DNA checked, and they can see whether in their system they are carrying genes that are responsible for cancer, whether they are having genes such as oncogenes or protogenes. So, that oncogenes or protogenes may become active in any time of their life, right? So, if they get it detected early itself, first itself they can start taking precautions. How do they take precautions? They can start taking precautions by avoiding certain carcinogens, say for example by avoiding tobacco smoke and all that. So that is how they can take. And also there are some products which are carcinogenic in nature. So all those first itself they can avoid and may lead a healthy lifestyle. So that is how cancer detection and diagnosis is done by different methods, wherein they use ionizing radiations, they use non-ionizing radiations, wherein they use CT scans and they use MRI scans, and they go in for antigen antibody studies also, and they go in for the detection of the genes before prior itself. So that is how it is done. So now let's look into what are the treatments that are available for cancer. So one of the treatment that is available for cancer is surgery or radiation therapy and immunotherapy. So surgery, that entire organ can be removed or a part of the organ can be removed. So say for example, a person is suffering from lung cancer. A part of the lung, wherever the cancer has spread, they will remove it by surgery, or if there is a tumor, they remove it by surgery so that it doesn't spread to the neighboring cells. Why? Because these tumors can flow through the blood and they can spread to other parts as well. So therefore, removal of the tumor, or even radiation therapy can be given, wherein those radiations will target only the cancer cells and they will try to destroy the cancer cells. So that is how it also can be done, and through immunotherapy also the cancer detection can be done. So in radiotherapy, what they do is the tumor cells are irradiated lethally, means the radiations are passed wherever the tumor cells are there. So those radiations will actually destroy the cancer cells, and therefore when the cancer cells gets destroyed, the neighboring tissues, healthy tissues that are there, they will survive. So that is how it is done. So and also apart from that, there are also several chemotherapeutic drugs that are available to treat cancer. So several chemotherapeutic drugs are used to kill cancerous cells as well. So some of these are specific for particular tumors. So these drugs are designed in such a way that they are specific for a specific type of cancer, and majority of the drugs, they have a lot of side effects. Why they have a lot of side effects is because these drugs are given in such high doses that it will reduce the immune system of the person, or it will bring down the immune cells of that particular person undergoing chemotherapy. So therefore it can lead to side effects such as hair loss, anemia. Anemia means the decreased count of the red blood cells. All that can occur, which are the side effects of chemotherapy treatment. So these are the different treatments. And apart from that, most cancers can be treated by combining two different types of treatments, such as surgery, radiotherapy and chemotherapy. So first, surgery will be done to remove the tumor. Next, wherever tumor formation is not there, but if cancer cells are there, to those cancer cells, radiations will be targeted and the cancer cells will be destroyed. After that, none of the cancer cells should remain in the body. So to make sure, they go in for chemotherapy as well. So these three procedures are also combined depending on the stage of the cancer, and the treatment is given to the person. So tumor cells have been shown to avoid detection. So sometimes what happens, the tumor cells will avoid itself from being detected by the radiations that are given to the body to destroy them, and therefore destruction by immune system is done, wherein immunotherapy is done during such time. So when some of the cancer cells goes undetected by the radiation, so at that time immunotherapy can be done. So therefore the patients here are given substances which are called as biological response modifiers, such as they are given biological response modifiers called as alpha interferons, and these alpha interferons, they will activate the immune system and therefore they will help in destroying the tumor cells. So when is it done? There are certain types of cancers which the radiation cells cannot detect. So when such types of cancer or tumors are present, the person is given some compound or a substance which is called as alpha interferon. So those alpha interferons, once it goes into the human body, it will start to increase the production of the immune cells in the human body. So when the immune system gets triggered and a lot of immune cells are produced, those immune cells will start to detect the cancer cells and it will start to destroy the cancer cells. So that is about immunotherapy. So therefore the three types of cancer treatment are, one is the radiotherapy, first surgery, then comes the radiotherapy, then the chemotherapy, and then the immunotherapy. So this was about the cancer disease, how it is caused and how it can be diagnosed and what is the treatment involved. So next let's move on to one of the interesting topics, that is drugs and alcohol abuse, and this is one of the most educative topic that is there in your textbook because most of the youths nowadays are exposed to drug and alcohol. So we need to know our limits and we need to know how exactly to curb all these bad habits. So let's study about this. So the drugs which are commonly abused are, so drugs usually, say for example, we have marijuana. So marijuana actually can be used as a healing drug, but what people do is they try to misuse it and they try to use it as a sedative for their own pleasure, right? And that should not happen. So what are the different types of drugs which can actually help people, but instead it is being misused by people? We shall study under drug abuse. So the drugs which are commonly abused are opioids, the cannabinoids, and the Coca Alkaloids. So majority of these are usually obtained from flowering plants. Say for example, the opioids are obtained from the flowering plant Opium poppy. Then the cannabinoids are obtained from cannabis sativa. So this cannabis sativa has a lot of medicinal properties, but the government are not approving their cultivation because it is being used as a drug. It is being used in an unhealthy manner by many of the individuals. So that is why this cultivation is not done. But apart from this, this has a lot of medicinal properties actually. And also there is one more drug which is Coca Alkaloids, which is got from a flowering plant called as Erythroxylum coca. So from this plant it is obtained. And there are some of the drugs which are obtained from fungi as well. So you might have heard of the magic mushrooms that is available in Ooty, right? Ooty and all that. So those mushrooms are also have some chemical property in it which can help you hallucinate. So such mushrooms can be used to treat patients who are under depression and all that, extreme depression and all that. But what are the people doing? What are the youths doing? They are misusing it to a larger extent. So that is nothing but drug abuse, wherein instead of using it for the benefit of the society, they are using it for their own recreational purpose, therefore harming the society. So let's study about each of these drugs one by one. So first is opioids. So opioids are the drugs which are capable of binding to a specific opioid receptor. So there are some receptors which are present in a central nervous system. So what is the function of the central nervous system, that is the spinal cord and the brain? To collect information from all the parts of the body so that the entire body can function properly, right? So in that particular central nervous system, there is one receptor which is called as opioid receptors that receive a certain kind of a signal. So what these opioids? So whenever a person takes opioids, these opioids will go and bind to the opioid receptors that are present in the central nervous system, that is the brain and the spinal cord. And apart from binding to the central nervous system, they also go and bind to the gastrointestinal tract. So there in the gastrointestinal tract and in the central nervous system, they will go and bind. So one of the best examples for opioid is heroin. So heroin is commonly called as smack. It is commonly called as smack, and it is nothing but a chemical named diacetylmorphine, and it is white in color. It doesn't have any odor or smell, and it is bitter in taste, and it is crystalline in appearance, just like salt. It looks exactly like salt, but only thing is it is bitter in taste and it doesn't have any smell. So that is about the heroin, which is one of the opioid. So therefore, when heroin is taken, what it will do? It will go and bind to the opioid receptors that are present in the central nervous system and the gastrointestinal tract, and it will take the person to an other world. You might feel happy for that moment, but once that effect of the drug reduces, you'll have to come back to the real world, right? So that is why it is always better to avoid such drugs. So solving whatever issues are there in life, taking such drugs are not one of the solutions, because it will only ruin your life at the end. So that is why youths especially should be very careful about all these things, and getting education about all these things are very, very important. So how is this drug obtained? That is heroin. So heroin is obtained by acetylation or adding of acetyl group to morphine, and therefore it is extracted from the latex of poppy plant, which is called as Papaver somniferum. So from this particular plant, which is called opium poppy, that is Papaver somniferum, this particular drug is extracted, which is called as morphine. And that particular drug is being refined, it is being altered, and it is sold in the form of heroin. And generally, it is taken by snorting. So snorting is nothing but it is taken through the nose, wherein the person pulls that particular powder that is there, so that the powder directly enters into the central nervous system of the body. It will bind to the brain, that is the opioid receptors that are present in the central nervous system and the gastrointestinal tract, and it will slow down the body function. And apart from that, heroin actually has a very good property. Why is that? Because it can be used as a depressant. So those people who are depressed, for them, such drugs will be given in low quantities, heroin, because they can put them to sleep. They can make their mood happy. So that is how depression can be treated. But apart from this, what are people doing? They are misusing these drugs. So that is nothing but one of the best examples for drug abuse. So therefore, this is how heroin, which is one of the best examples for opioid drug, is being used or is being abused. Next is cannabinoids. So cannabinoids are a group of chemicals which interact with cannabinoid receptors present in the brain. So in the brain, there are certain receptors which are called as cannabinoid receptors. So whoever takes this particular cannabinoids, these cannabinoids will go and attach itself to the cannabinoid receptors present in the brain. So there are some natural cannabinoids which are obtained from the inflorescence or the flowers of the plant Cannabis sativa. So this is the Cannabis sativa. So from this Cannabis sativa, the cannabinoid molecule is extracted, and that cannabinoid molecule is usually used as a drug. So the top of the flower is used, the leaves and the resin or the sticky substance that comes out of the plant, all these are used in preparing this particular cannabinoid drug. And also cannabis plant are used in various combinations, that is the different parts are used in various combinations, and drugs are produced out of it in the form of marijuana, hashish, charas and ganja. So all these are the different names that are given to the cannabinoid drug. So when these are taken, these will go and bind to the cannabinoid receptors that are present in the brain, and it will make that particular person hallucinate as if he's in some fairyland or something. It will make that person feel. So this drug is generally taken by inhalation, either by smelling it or by oral ingestion, that is through the mouth by eating it. And these drugs are known for their effects on the cardiovascular system of the body. And these days cannabinoids are also being abused by some sports person because it increases the energy in the sports person. So that is why before a race or something, sports person, they use this cannabinoids, and they might win, but whenever they go for a test, if they get caught, their life will be ruined. So they don't think of the future. So that is why always have a good idea about your future. Your future should not get spoiled because of 5 minutes happiness, right? So that is why you need to be very careful about all these things. So next, one more drug which is being abused is Coca Alkaloid. So Coca Alkaloid, which is also commonly called as cocaine. So cocaine is obtained from the coca plant called as Erythroxylum coca, and this native to South America. So in the previous slide, I showed you the picture of the coca plant. So from that, this cocaine is usually obtained. So this cocaine, usually it interferes with the transport of the neurotransmitter dopamine. So dopamine is one such hormone which keeps the body functioning healthy and also keeps that individual calm and all that. So when this cocaine is taken, what happens? It will interfere with the movement or the transport of this particular neurotransmitter, which is called as dopamine. So cocaine, which is commonly called as coke or it is called as crack, is usually snorted. That is, it is pulled from the nose, and it has a potent stimulating action on the central nervous system, wherein those person who takes cocaine, directly it will affect the central nervous system and it will produce a sense of euphoria. That is as if he is in some fairyland or as if he is in a world which is full of happiness. That's not true, right? Is the world full of happiness? No. A life is with problems. We have to overcome those problems with our own effort, not depending on such drugs which can ruin our life. So this is how it sends that person to euphoria, which is for time being. Always understand this. Whatever drugs you take, such drugs, it is only for time being. Once you come out of it, you are in the real world. You'll have to face that situation. So one such bad idea, if it gets into your head, you'll be ruining your entire life. So you need to be very careful. And not just that, it increases the energy of the particular persons. And excessive dosage of cocaine can also cause hallucinations. And there are some other plants also which have hallucination properties. So hallucination is also caused by people who consume alcohol, right? You feel as if you're in a different world. But if alcohol is taken in a limit, it's healthy, in a limit. But apart from that, if it is taken in excess quantity, it can cause a lot of problems in that particular person. And apart from that, as I told you, there are some plants which are having some hallucinogenic property such as Atropa belladonna and Datura. So Datura plants is usually seen around. So it is usually found in the wastelands and all that. So this plant also has the hallucinogenic property, and Atropa belladonna also has hallucinogenic property. So these are some of the examples for Coca Alkaloid related drugs. So next, moving on to drug abuse, let's study about that. So there are some other drugs such as barbiturates, amphetamines, benzodiazepines and some other drugs which are normally used as medicine to treat depressions, that is in patients, to help them to treat with their mental illness such as depression, insomnia. Insomnia is nothing but the inability to sleep. Some people, they cannot sleep for many days. So that is insomnia. So to treat depression, to treat insomnia, all these drugs which I have mentioned here are very helpful. But what people do, they misuse them. They misuse them for their own recreational benefit. That is not good. And morphine is one of the very effective sedative, and it is also a painkiller, and it is used in patients whenever they are undergoing a surgery, so that the patient can be put to sleep and he cannot feel any pain. But this morphine also is being misused by the people, wherein they are using it for their own unwanted benefits. And there are several plants, fruits and seeds that have hallucinogenic property, like as I showed, Atropa belladonna, datura, all these have hallucinogenic properties. And there are some mushrooms which have hallucinogenic property as well. So these have been used for hundreds of years in folklore medicine. So earlier there was no painkillers, or there was no sedatives and all, or there was nothing like anesthesia and all which can be given to a person to put him to sleep. So that was the time when they used these plants. They used to grind these plants and then feed it to that person who is having a surgery or something, or who is under a pain, so that his pain can subside. So that is how it is done. But nowadays it is being used for unwanted purposes, and also they are used for certain religious ceremonies and rituals all over the globe. So that is how they are used. So to treat mental illness, so for a lot of things these drugs are of great importance, but instead of using it in the right way, people are abusing it or misusing it. So that is why it is called as drug abuse. So when these are taken for a purpose other than medicinal use, or in amount or frequency that impairs one's physical, physiological or psychological function, then it is called as drug abuse. So if you use it for medicinal purpose, then it is good. Otherwise, if it is used for some other unwanted purpose, then we can call it as a drug abuse. So this was about drug abuse. So next, let's talk about one more plant that is used as a drug abuse nowadays, that is tobacco. So smoking also paves the way to hard drugs, right? Because excessive smoking can also lead to a lot of disorders in the human body. And tobacco has been used by human beings for more than 400 years. But if it is used in a limit, it is fine. Otherwise, it can affect the health of a person. So tobacco can either be used in the form of smoking, chewing, or it is used as a snuff. So snuff is a powder which is usually not available nowadays, but earlier days it was available, wherein it was pulled through the nose, and that actually created a kind of hallucination and all that. So that and all, this tobacco is usually used. And tobacco contains a large number of chemical substances, among which nicotine is one of the important chemical substance that is present in tobacco. And this nicotine actually, it stimulates the adrenal gland. Means nicotine has the capability to make you very energetic, because it stimulates the adrenal gland that is present on the kidney. So when the adrenal gland gets stimulated, it releases the adrenaline hormone. And also it releases the noradrenaline hormone into the blood circulation, and both of these, adrenaline and noradrenaline hormone, it raises the blood pressure and it also increases the heart rate. So excessive use can lead to death of that particular person. So that is why tobacco is usually used to go into a we can say that to go into a hallucinating state or make the person's mind happy also, tobacco is being smoked and used in different forms. Smoking is associated with increased incidence of cancers of lung. It causes cancer of the urinary bladder, the cancer of the throat, and apart from that, it can cause certain respiratory disorders such as bronchitis. It can cause emphysema. It can cause diseases of the heart, that is coronary heart disease. It can cause gastric ulcers, etc. So therefore, a lot of problems smoking can cause. So tobacco can lead to a lot of problems, but tobacco is one such product that brings revenue to the country. So that is why a ban is not put into this particular tobacco. And tobacco chewing is associated with increased risk of cancer. So it usually causes cancer of the mouth, that is cancer of the oral cavity, and smoking also increases the carbon monoxide. So when you smoke, you're taking in carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is one of the most toxic poisonous gases that is there, and this carbon monoxide will get into the blood and it will reduce the concentration of the hemo-bound oxygen. That is why a person who smokes continuously will feel tired sometimes, because enough oxygen will not get supplied to his body. So that is one of the reasons. And this causes oxygen deficiency in the body. So therefore, excessive smoking can cause oxygen deficiency. If you notice, a healthy person can climb a stair very, very fast without panting. But a person who smokes, once he climbs half of the stair, he'll start to pant, because his body will not get enough supply of oxygen. So that is the reason why he'll not get enough supply of oxygen, because when he smokes, carbon monoxide will get accumulated in the blood, and this accumulation of carbon dioxide will reduce the capacity of the hemoglobin to carry oxygen to different parts of the body. So that is how he will feel tired very, very fast. So that is why it is always better to avoid smoking. So that is why I told you, government, they'll never bring a ban on smoking. Why? Because this particular tobacco cultivation has been a revenue to a number of farmers, poor farmers. That is one reason. Other reason is this tobacco or cigarettes is one of the leading revenues for the country. So that is the reason why they don't put a complete ban on smoking. But other than that, they give statutory warnings on the cigarette. It's very funny, right? You sell something and you put statutory warning in that. Instead of that, why can't you stop selling that product? That is never done, because it brings a high revenue to the government, and that revenue is needed to improve the quality of the living of the people of that particular country, to improve the infrastructure. For many things it is needed. So that is why they never bring a ban on smoking or ban on cigarette making, but instead they actually give statutory warning on the package. So if you can see, they would have given on the cover, you can see smoking causes cancer, smoking causes lung cancer, smoking causes heart diseases, smoking is injurious to health. Like that, statutory warnings will be given on the cover, but a ban will never be brought on cigarettes. So always that statutory warning says how smoking is injurious to health. But still, smoking is prevalent in the society, both among the youth and the old people. And in spite of knowing the dangers of smoking and chewing tobacco and its additive nature, the youth nowadays, some youth, they believe that smoking in front of others is something great, as if it is like they feel it is a show off, but it is not. How long you go somewhere, you start panting in front of others, people will start making fun of you. They'll start calling you old, because at a very young age, you'll start to lose interest in many things because of this bad habit. So that is why always it is better to avoid these bad habits of the drugs and the smoking. And any addict requires counseling and medical help to get rid of the habit. You cannot get rid of smoking very fast. Eventually, you need to take the help of medical person, or you need to go in for counseling if you need to quit smoking. So always it is prevention is better than cure, because once you get addicted, coming out of it is quite very difficult. You can come out of it. How? If you have a very good mindset, if you're so much determined and strong in your mindset, then you can come out of it. Otherwise, it is very difficult to come out. So always better prevent these bad habits than later on regretting about it. So next, let's talk about adolescence and drug alcohol abuse. So adolescence and drug or the alcohol abuse. So what is adolescence? So adolescence means both a period and a process during which a child becomes mature in terms of his or her attitudes and beliefs for effective participation in the society. So children who are below the age of 10 or below, they can be considered to be kids, right? But those who are above 18 can be considered to be adults. But there is a age in between where the people are neither considered adults nor they are considered kids, right? So that particular age is called as the adolescence. And adolescence is one of the important period in a human's life, because it is at that period you will be trying to learn new things. So when you're learning new things, it is always better to go in for learning new good habits rather than going for the bad ones. So the period between 12 to 18 years of age may be thought to be as adolescence period. So adolescence is accompanied by several biological and behavioral changes, because it is during this time a lot of bodily changes and behavioral changes can be seen in a person. And adolescence therefore is one such age which is very vulnerable, because in the society they'll neither be considered a kid or nor an adult. So it is a very confusing age, and it is at that age wherein the adolescents, they thrive in, or they decide to go in for the bad habits. So it is very, very important to provide them actual education, because it is a very, very vulnerable phase of mental and psychological development of an individual. So giving proper education, so that is why you have this particular chapter. You're in your second PUC, you have not even reached 18, right? So once unless you cross 18, you can't be called as an adult. So this is the right time for you to learn all these chapters and read them and try to understand them for the betterment of yourself. These chapters are not important only in the exam point of view. It is very important for your life as well, because this is the time, this particular age from 12 to 18 is the time when you can get into bad hands, you can get into bad habits. So that is why government has introduced all these topics in your textbook. So you will start understanding how your future should be, whether it is up to you now to decide whether you need a good future or a bad future. A good future wherein you can get into all the good habits and become a responsible citizen, and a bad future, of course, 100% it is a bad future if you get into drug and alcohol abuse. So therefore, better to avoid all those things. So the first use of drugs or alcohol may be out of curiosity. So adolescents, they are not capable of judging whether something is good or bad. They might see the adults smoking or drinking alcohol, and they might feel that curiosity, how it might feel when you smoke, how it might feel, how the taste of the alcohol might be. What happens if you drink alcohol? Because it is a very curious age to learn new things. So what happens here is, because of curiosity, or in order to experiment on something, usually the first smoking or the alcohol intake will start, and eventually what happens, it will become a habit. And when you find out that it will give you a temporary relief from the problems of life, you will start taking them as a regular habit. So that is how the person becomes addictive to a particular drug or alcohol. And of late, stress because of pressure to excel in academics, that is to improve in academics, to improve in examination. Nowadays, there is a lot of pressure on the students, right? My neighbor's son has scored 90%. Why can't you score so much? You have to score more than him. Or the daughter has scored more. Why can't you? You have to score more than her. So that is how a lot of academic pressure is put by the parents, by the society, and by the schools and everywhere on the students, without understanding that each child is good in his own way and is having a particular capability which beyond that which he cannot do anything. It is not always true that you score less marks when you are in your PUC or in your 10th standard and later on also it will continue. No, there are a number of examples of children who have excelled in the academics when they get into higher education. So don't judge these people just based on their 1 or 2 marks cards and decide that their future is going to be ruined. No, it is not always like that. You can excel in your academics any time of your life. So that is why you should pressure, all these examination pressures, these stress, all these that are provided by the society or the parents can also push the youth to voluntarily start taking alcohol and drugs. So therefore, never ever compare your child, compare anyone with others, because each of the life of a person is entirely different. Some might be very near in reaching their race or finishing their race, but eventually you also can reach that stage by taking few smaller steps, right? So always keep that in mind. So everybody's life is not the same here. So the perception among youth that it is cool, as I told you, some people think that smoking is something cool, but it is not. Actually, nobody cares. Nobody talks good about you if you get into bad habits. They might just say you're cool and all that, but behind your back, they'll always be saying what type of bad habit that person has got into. We should avoid his company and all that. So it is not always cool to think that smoking cigarette is cool or drinking alcohol is cool. All that is never cool, because it might look cool for some period, but later on it will ruin your life completely. So this will lead to the progressiveness to smoking. Also it will lead to the use of drugs or alcohol, and also this actually, that coolness kind of behavior, what you think, that is one thing that actually nowadays youth fall into. They think that doing all this is cool, and they try to get into all these bad habits, which is actually not cool. It is cool only for a time being. After that, it will ruin your life. So always be away from all these bad habits. And also there are some televisions, the movies, newspapers, the internet, all these shows some of the heroes and all that smoking. And you think that they are smoking, they look cool, and it is cool for you to smoke. They are just acting in those movies. So that is why always don't fall into those misconceptions. And there are certain other factors that have been seen to be associated with drug and alcohol abuse among the adolescents, because of their instability or because of the unsupportive family structure and because of peer pressure. So family also plays a very important role in the mental health of a child. There is a family which is always under fight, that will put your child under a lot of mental pressure, eventually pushing them to seek happiness somewhere. So seeking happiness somewhere means they will start depending on the drugs and the alcohol and all that. So the family also should take care, and it should be a happy family wherein they'll put a lot of good things into the child's head so that he doesn't get into a bad habit. So all these are some of the reasons why adolescents get into the alcohol and the drug abuse. So next, let's talk about addiction and dependence. So addiction is a psychological attachment to certain effects. Say for example, you just smoke because of curiosity, you want to try. So you smoke and you feel that you're feeling happier than before. So next time also you want to feel even more happier, you will start increasing the number of cigarettes that you smoke. So that is how it becomes addictive. You'll start thinking that only smoking is the one that can make you happy. Only taking drugs is the one that can make you happy. No, it's not always true, right? There are other means that can make you happy. Reading a good book, listening to music can make you happy. Watching a good movie can make you happy. Traveling to beautiful destinations can make you happy. Just having a small lunch with your family or friends can make you happy. So there are other means also that can make you happy. But all these happiness, that is using drugs, smoking, alcohol, all these happiness is just for time being. It is not a permanent happiness. So therefore, addiction is a psychological attachment to certain effects such as euphoria, and it is a temporary feeling of well-being. It is a temporary feeling. It will make you feel that you're happy, you're somebody big in the society. But once that hallucination, once the effect of the drugs come down, then you will be actually the person you are. You will have to face the society how it is. So that is why learn to face the society by solving the problem, by keeping your mind calm, by indulging in some good activities rather than escaping from the problems temporarily by taking such alcohols, the tobacco and drugs and all that. So these usually, this addictive nature usually drives people to take them even when these are not needed for them, or when their use becomes self-destructive. Eventually, it will lead to self-destruction of that particular person who has become addictive to the drug and the alcohol. So with repeated use of drugs, the tolerance level of the receptors present in a body increases. So what happens next? If you start taking drugs, if you start depending on drugs continuously, and for once when you stop, your body will start to shiver. It will not listen to you because it can listen only to the drug that you're taking, and it is very, very difficult to come out of it. Your body will be put into a lot of pain and a lot of intolerable things. So that is why imagine all those things, think of it, think of the future, and avoid all these bad habits. And consequently, the receptors that are there, they will respond to only to higher doses of drugs or alcohol, leading to greater intake and finally addiction. So as I told you, one day you'll, for out of curiosity, you'll smoke a cigarette. That cigarette smoke will make your brain happy, will make you feel happy. The next day you'll want to go on increasing the number because you want that happiness for a longer time, because of not knowing that it is a temporary happiness. So that is how a person becomes addictive to a drug, or alcohol, or a cigarette. So therefore, thus the addictive potential of drugs and alcohol will pull the user into a vicious circle wherein you can never come out of it. Even though without those drugs and alcohol, later on if you think that you can be happy, you cannot, because you'll become so addictive that without the use of the drugs and the alcohol, you'll think that I can never be happy. So from that particular circle, you can never come out of it. It is very difficult to come out of it. So that is why it is always better to prevent than to go and find a cure for it and regret later. So in the absence of any guidance or counseling, the person gets addicted and becomes dependent on that particular drug. So dependence is the tendency. So what is this dependence? We learned that what is addiction. Addiction is somewhere you get addicted to it, wherein you go on increasing the intake of it and you can never come out of it. And then you'll start depending on it continuously. So dependence is the tendency of the body to manifest a characteristic and unpleasant withdrawal syndrome if the regular dose of drug or alcohol is abruptly discontinued. So dependency means you cannot live without it. Even though you make up your mind that you need to come out of it, but your body would have been so addicted to that your body will not be able to survive if you stop taking that particular drug or alcohol. That is nothing but dependency. So your entire body function will start to depend on drug and alcohol, and sudden stopping of it may also cause death. So that is why it is very difficult to come out of it if you become addicted to these drugs and alcohol and smoking. So that is why it is always better to not get into these practices. So this is characterized. So it can lead to a number of problems. So suddenly if you stop taking drugs, it can lead to a number of problems such as anxiety, shakiness or shivering of the body, vomiting sensation or nausea, then uncontrolled sweating. So in some cases, the withdrawal or the complete stoppage of drugs all of a sudden can be severe and even life-threatening. It can cause the death of the person. So that is why whenever you want to come out of that particular addiction, it is always better to visit a medical supervisor, take his advice, take his counseling, take proper medications, and then try to come out of it. Otherwise, it can lead to a lot of side effects in the body. So dependency also leads the patient to ignore all social norms in order to get sufficient funds to satiate his needs. So what happens? So we all know that the drugs, for example, cocaine, it is very, very costly, right? So how long, if you're addicted to drug, you cannot go for work properly. You cannot socialize properly. And therefore, from where will you get the money? When you don't have money, you will start entering into other bad habits such as stealing money and all that. So these results in many social adjustment problems as well. So what are the effects of people who take drugs? What social problems they can get into? We shall look into. So those who take drugs intravenously. So intravenously means directly injecting the drug into the veins. So those who take drugs intravenously are much more likely to acquire or get some serious infections like AIDS and hepatitis B. This we have studied in the previous session, right? So whenever a group of people are indulging in intravenous drug, taking in of intravenous drug, they will share the needle. So if one person is suffering from HIV or AIDS, that entire group will get HIV or AIDS. So that is one of the factors that can happen or effects of drug or alcohol abuse. And use of alcohol during adolescence may lead to heavy drinking in adulthood. Now you might think, what will happen if I start drinking heavily in the adulthood? It will cause a lot of family problems. Your family life will be ruined and your social life will also get ruined. Both your personal, your professional, all your life will get ruined. So that is why it is always better to prevent alcohol intake. And the chronic use of drugs and alcohol, it will damage the nervous system and it will also cause liver cirrhosis. So liver cirrhosis is nothing but wherein the liver is actually one such organ that is capable of repairing itself. But it can repair itself only to a certain extent. Continuously, if you fill the liver with drugs and alcohol, then the liver will reach a stage in such it will reach such a stage that it will not be capable of repairing its own damaged cells, therefore leading to liver cirrhosis. And once the liver is completely damaged, it will lead to the death of that particular person. So we need to be very, very careful. So that is why we need to think of the future. Now you might be feeling happy, or that person might be feeling happy with all these bad habits, but in the near future, his health will get ruined. His entire life will get ruined. So the use of drugs and alcohol during pregnancy is also not recommended, as it will adversely affect the fetus. What mistake has the baby done, right? The baby has not done any mistake. So you should think of it and avoid alcohol or usage of drugs during pregnancy. And also, these drugs are misused by the sports persons. So what these sports person do is, they use some narcotic analgesics, they use anabolic steroids, they use some diuretics, and they use some certain hormones in the form of injections, tablets and all that before participating in a sport, because it increases the muscle strength. And also, it will increase the aggressiveness of that particular person to win. It will promote aggressiveness, and as a result, it will increase the performance of the athlete, therefore leading him to win that particular competition. So, but he might win that particular competition, but for some reason, if he gets caught, what will happen? His entire career will get ruined. So, better think of it. And the side effects of the use of there are a lot of side effects of the use of anabolic steroids. In females, these anabolic steroids, they will lead to masculinization. Masculinization means the female will start to develop male characters. So that is one of the problem. And it will lead to increased aggressiveness. It will lead to a lot of mood swings. It will lead to depression. It will lead to abnormal menstrual cycles. excessive hair growth in the face and in the body. It will also lead to the enlargement or widening of the clitoris, and also it will lead to deepening of voice. The voice will become exactly like male voice. So it is always better to avoid such anabolic steroids. And in males, these anabolic steroids can cause acne, that is pimples, it can cause increased aggressiveness, it can cause mood swings, depression, reduction in the size of the testicles, therefore leading to infertility, that is decreased sperm production, and also it can lead to kidney and liver dysfunction, it can lead to breast enlargement in males, it can lead to premature baldness, that is the loss of hair at a very young age, and also it can lead to the enlargement of the prostate gland. So all these side effects will occur. And in the case of adolescents, side effects such as severe facial, that is in both male and female, severe facial and body acne will occur, and premature closure of the growth centers of the long bones may result in stunted growth. So, the growth of the individual may get affected and it will lead to stunted growth as well. So, these are the effects or side effects of anabolic steroids which the athletes usually use, and it is not good. So, therefore, how can this drug and alcohol abuse be prevented? So, it can be prevented by avoiding peer pressure. That is, as I said earlier, every child has his own choice or his own personality, his own skills, his own method of learning, and his own pace of learning, right? It is not that the entire children of the world can score 100% marks. No, each individual has its own capability. So it is the duty of the parents to understand them, give them good guidance, take care of them, treat them like their friends and not like some materialistic item wherein you feed them something and they have to deliver it to you. Never do that. Treat them as if they are human beings, because no child will be the same. He will change when he grows up. He might become smarter. He might become knowledgeable. So you can't decide a child's fate at a very young age. So that is why never put a lot of pressure on a child. So that is how it can be prevented. The use of drugs can be prevented. And also proper education and counseling can be given. So like how I told you, you have this lesson. So by learning this lesson, now you might at least start thinking, how, yeah, it is true. I should not get into these bad habits because it will ruin my life. And these are temporary happiness. Later on, it will ruin my life. So you should not regret later. So all that thoughts will start to come. So having certain educational programs regarding this and good counseling centers also is very, very important. And also seeking help from parents. Anything you have to discuss with your parent. Any pressure you're feeling in the case of work, in your life, in schools, never shy off from discussing it with your parents, because your parents are always your good well-wishers. They are the ones who will take care of you till your end. It is not some other random person who has entered into your life that will take care of you or will understand you. It is always your parents who will understand you. So always take the suggestions of your parents, and any problem, don't try to hide it from them. Talk to them and get it solved, because they will be the one of the best counselors for you. So that is why. And you get support from your parents and the whole world is against you, nothing will bother. So that is why always talk to your parents, always talk to your friends and share your problems instead of depending on these bad habits to come out of your problems, which is again temporary. So taking proper advice and seeking help from your parents is also very, very important. And also it is very important to seek professional and medical help. So anything, any psychological issue, any depression, anything you're feeling sad, you can always depend on medical professionals and counselors and take help from them to come out of it, rather than depending on these unwanted habits that are there. And also looking for danger signs. Like alert parents and teachers need to look for. So this is the duty of the parents and teachers to always have a look into the child's behavior. How has he changed? Is there any change in his behavior? And immediately inform whoever it is concerned so that they can easily bring that person out of it very fast. Otherwise, once he gets addicted, it is very difficult to bring him out of that particular situation. So therefore, even the parents and teachers in a school also has their own responsibility in taking care of the children, especially those of the adolescent age. So this is how various preventive measures can be followed in order to curb the alcohol or the drug abuse. So this was about this particular session wherein we discussed about cancer and drug and alcohol abuse, and it was quite interesting. As I told you, you have to learn a lot of things from this, not just for examination point of view, but as also to lead a healthy and a happy life. I hope you understood this session. So with this chapter comes to an end. We shall meet again in the coming session with a new chapter. Thank you.